As you can see, the title of my message today is "The Ceiling is Not White." Yeah, I decided to go with a little bit of a cryptic message today, and I think you'll understand what I'm talking about as I get into this. So this week, we started doing a lot of work on another unit. I don't know if you could tell in the pictures, but there's two units we're working on at the same time now. One's upstairs, one's downstairs. And we just started working on one of them this last Sunday, Monday, or whatever. And we were looking around after the tenants moved out, looking at everything. And I was looking at the ceilings, and I was thinking to myself, they don't look too bad. I think they look white. We'll paint them anyway just because they seem glossy, and it's a low ceiling. It's good if it's not glossy so much. And so we're painting the ceilings, or not, when I say we, I mean my dad and all the other volunteers who are doing the painting. But we put new lights in after we painted the ceiling, and I looked up and I realized, they weren't white at all. They were some kind of something. I don't know what the color was, but the difference between the old color and the new color was so drastic that I thought, okay, it absolutely was not white. It was something light yellow or cream, or I don't know what it was. And it was interesting because before we did the painting and the lighting, we put in the recessed lighting and stuff, the whole unit was very dark. It was shockingly dark. Dark carpets, although I'm not sure if they were originally dark. Dark wall colors, like, rich orange and purples and just very dark colors. And very little lighting. And so you couldn't really get a clear sense of what all the little details and things like that. And you couldn't really get a clear look at stuff. But then once we put in the new lighting and we looked at everything, I was like, I was a little bit shocked. It was very different. And it's not the first time in my life where I've been surprised to find that something I thought was the case, like the ceiling being white, actually turned out to be not the case at all. I've had many experiences like that in my life, whether it's in a practical sense, like paint colors, or whether it's in a spiritual or a relational sense. Whether it be from programs I've done in my life, like Landmark, or Millionaire Mind, or Divine Principle workshops and seminars, or the marriage course, or counseling, or just in really honest, raw conversations, or seeking answers in prayer. I often will end up discovering that something that I thought to be true wasn't actually true at all. Sometimes we have to face the reality that things aren't always the way that we thought they were. Maybe it's our assumptions about people, about God, about ourselves, can be and often are wrong. We think the ceiling is white, but it actually isn't. And even other people might be trying to tell us the ceiling is not white, but it's hard for us to hear it because it seems like it is. I want to give a shout out to the marriage course organizers, Gilo and Kazio. And of course the cooks. It wouldn't happen without the cooks. Mitzi and Areta and Uyanga and Hisako-san and my mom and Adonia and who am I forgetting? Peggy. Peggy's going to be cooking this. Yeah, if you guys haven't done the marriage course, you're missing out. Can you imagine all the amazing different meals that that are being prepared? Japanese and Mongolian and Western. Anyway, just so you know. But the marriage course is really a beautiful program. I was talking a little bit about this with Gilo, but it's kind of come up over and over the years, is that it facilitates difficult conversations, and it brings out things that you didn't know were issues, or maybe they weren't issues, but they just were things that were kind of floating under the surface, just being unnoticed. But they're silently chipping away at your quality of your relationship. So Adonia and I did the marriage course 4 or 5 years ago, something like that now. And we had a very interesting experience. We did it because we just were intrigued, and we really wanted to have the experience, and also we felt that if we're going to promote it in our church, we should have gone through it. And then, of course, at the time, our youngest was still pretty young. So, when you have young children, it's just really nice to be able to get away sometimes and have a little bit of a break. But we were surprised by how much we gained from the marriage course. We went into it not really feeling like we had like a serious issue or a serious problem that we needed to resolve, or some kind of an impasse that we were dealing with in the moment that was just making our life miserable. We went into it just hoping to have a good time. But we were surprised by some of the things that came out, and especially in this area of our communication. So there was a number of things that we gained, but maybe the biggest thing was just our family cultures and the way that we were communicating with each other that was causing a lot of problems. We didn't even realize it, but I found that, my family, we don't necessarily resolve issues well, but we express them. There's lots of conversation about, what's wrong and, what could be better, and I don't like this or I don't like that. And so I kind of grew up with that to some degree, and to some degree that's the way I express myself to Adonia. If I'm not happy about something, then it's very obvious. Or if I am happy with something, it's very obvious. But it comes out fairly straightforward. But whereas her family, it's very kind of low key. You don't really talk about problems so much. But if there is a conversation, if someone makes a comment, it's serious. Like, it's a big deal. So coming from those two backgrounds, where I'm often expressing myself, especially if there's something, kind of frustrating, and her coming from a background where that's not common, I often ended up hurting her feelings just by being vocal about the things that I was thinking about. Sometimes I just feel like I had to get stuff off my chest. I just had to say the honest, what I'm feeling. But that's not something that's common in their family, so it came across as very hurtful to her. And sometimes the way I would express things would have an edge on it, like maybe some blame or some criticism, right? And so she would feel that very, very acutely, whereas maybe somebody like me might just be like, why are you saying that? She would just be hurt, and then she would think about it all day long, or for days on or weeks, and try to process it and try to understand why I was being hurtful and what she did wrong. And I wouldn't, of course, know that she was going through that, because I'm just doing what I normally do. And so we had to learn, we discovered through the marriage course that the way that we were communicating was actually hurtful to one another. It was hurtful to me also because I felt that she didn't really take what I was saying seriously, because she just would feel hurt by it and just not really say anything. But then I would feel like, oh, she's not taking me seriously because she's not saying anything about it. But then she was being hurt by the things that I said just because I was being expressive, and also some added blame as always hurtful as well. So we weren't thinking about this at all. It was just a part of our dynamic. Then we went to the marriage course and we were like, oh my gosh, this is very unhealthy. This is going to cause serious problems if we keep going. It's already, it's already been causing problems, but we didn't realize what it was, the damage that it was causing. And that's wonderful, because you don't want to realize after it's too late. You want to try to catch stuff. I mean, you can't go through life expecting to nip all these things in the bud. You can't expect to catch all these issues before they become problems. But, as much as possible, we have to be proactive. So, that was one experience that I had that really showed me that the ceiling is not white. What I thought was, healthy communication was actually, there was room for improvement. It wasn't as good as I thought. It wasn't as good as we thought it was. So that was very eye-opening, very humbling, but we were so grateful because it showed us, how we could be better. It showed us how we could improve because it honestly it was under our radar. We didn't even notice. We didn't notice that the ceiling was not white. So there's many areas that this applies to life. And this concept of light illuminating is very much also a spiritual concept as well. Here's some excerpt from the Bible, from Psalm 119. It says, "Your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path." And from the Divine Principle, people need religion in order to seek the ultimate reality and realize goodness in accordance with the inclination of the original mind. Thus, the purpose of every religion is identical. However, religions have appeared in different forms according to their various missions, the cultures in which they took root, and their particular historical period. Their scriptures have taken different forms for similar reasons. All scriptures have the same purpose, to illuminate their surroundings with the light of truth. Yet, when a brighter lamp is lit, the old lamp is outshone and its mission fades. Because religions lack the power to guide modern people out of the dark valley of death into the full radiance of life, there must emerge a new expression of truth that can radiate a new and brighter light. Jesus indicated that God would someday reveal a new truth. "I have said this to you in figures. The hour is coming when I shall no longer speak to you in figures, but tell you plainly of the Father." Another section talks about truth illuminates the innermost desires of the mind, of the spirit mind. A person must first comprehend his spirit mind's deepest desire through the truth, and then put this knowledge into action to fulfill his responsibility. Only then do the living spirit elements and vitality elements reciprocate within him, enabling him to progress toward goodness. So if things aren't working out in our lives, or we find ourselves kind of stuck in a certain issue or certain impasse, then we have to consider the possibility that maybe we're not seeing things as they are. That maybe we need to shine a new light, or shine more light on our lives, or a certain area of our life. And these things, like doing the marriage course, are wonderful ways to shine new lights on our life because they help put our life into a new perspective. We're used to living our life a certain way. We're used to seeing our life from a certain perspective. We're used to seeing the other people in our life from a certain perspective. And that becomes like our standard way of being. I'm a certain way, you're a certain way, the society and the world and God is a certain way. But, maybe it's not the full picture. Maybe it's not everything. And maybe, actually, not only is it not everything, but maybe the views and the perspectives that we have actually are causing our problems. So we could all use more light in our life. There's a lot of light available. It's like the sun. I love this analogy about the sun. The sun shines indiscriminately on all people. Of course, if you're like in Iceland or Alaska, you may get a little bit less sun than like us here in Colorado. We get so much sun, right? But regardless, the sun doesn't choose who it gives its light to or its warmth to. Just gives it to anybody as long as you are in the path to receive it. And I really feel like it's a good analogy to what we're talking about and to God's love and light in our life as well. It's equally available to all of us. Every one of us has that opportunity and ability to tap into it, but it's also to some degree up to us whether we want to, stand in the shade, or if we want to stay indoors, or if we want to actually go out and receive that sunlight as well, or get that more of that light into our life. On top of that, adding more light into our life also has the added bonus of attracting more good and repelling more bad in our life. When we moved here, soon afterwards, when I became aware of the reality that wasn't necessarily the best neighborhood to be in, I asked a police officer, community resource officer, because they offer this service. You can use it too if you want. They'll come to your home or to your business, and they'll give you like a written report on what you could do to, discourage crime or vandalism on your property. And one of the things that he shared, and there was a number of different suggestions that he made to us, but he said one of the big things you can do is add more light at nighttime. More light. And, I was a little bit surprised because I thought, well, if we're not noticeable, if we're darker, then maybe people won't notice us. But he said, actually, no, people are looking for places that are not well lit. People are looking for places where they can be hidden. And they're also looking for places where it seems like people don't really care. They're not watching. They're not paying attention. So I thought that was kind of interesting too, that even in a very practical sense, if you want to avoid vandalism or people causing problems on your property, add more light. And likewise, if we want more goodness and less problems in our life, add more light. Simple concept, but obviously, like everything, easier in concept than in application. But there's a couple quote verses here from the Bible I want to share about this. This one's from John. Light has come into the world, but people loved darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. But whoever lives by the truth comes into the light so that it may be seen plainly that what they have done has been done in the sight of God. Kind of reminds me with Adam and Eve, right? How they were they hid themselves after the fall, and they were God obviously could see them, but they're well, we didn't want you to see us hiding. And this one's from John 8. When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So we may think that wherever we're at in our life, whether we're a teenager or a 38-year-old or a 70-year-old, that we have figured out all the important things. And maybe you have. But it never hurts to keep an open mind. Maybe the ceiling is white, but maybe it's not. And I think, some of the biggest transformational moments in my life have come from me recognizing that something I thought was true wasn't really true. That I had to humble myself. I didn't know as much as I thought I knew. Something I thought I did with the right motivation actually ended up being a very hurtful thing. And sometimes we have to accept and digest those things in order to become better, in order to become the people that God wants us to be. It never hurts to keep an open mind. A few weeks ago, Pastor Donia gave a message on stewardship. I don't know if you remember that one, but it was a really great message. And one point just really struck out to me. It was in a moment where she was talking about owner versus renter mentality and things. And she was saying, nothing we think we own, we actually really own. Everything is we are stewards of everything in our life. We have the opportunity during our short life to take care of the things that God put into our hands, the life that we've been given, the opportunities that we have. Yeah, some hands are better than others. Some hardships are greater than others. but we have the one life to live, and we have the one opportunity. And I just was really struck by that in that moment, because obviously I knew that intellectually, but in that moment I needed to hear it. In that moment I needed to remember that it's not about me, it's not about mine, it's about I'm a steward of what God has given me. And it's not just about me doing my own thing. I have to remember that it's a blessing and an opportunity to be able to care for what God has given. And that was a mindset shift. And I love those little moments, those little aha moments. Sometimes they're little, sometimes they're big. But you do that enough times in your life, and you realize you find yourself going in maybe a little bit of a different direction than you were going before, you thought you would be going in your life. So that kind of brings me to kind of the conclusion, or the main idea is, well, at the end of the day, the ceiling is whatever it is, right? We can have an opinion, oh, it's yellow, or it's peach, or it's white, and then we could be like, oh, with more light, I realize it actually is white, or it isn't white. But then how do we know if it really is white or not? Well, at the end of the day, all we can really do is add more light. And the more light we have, the more we see things clearly. And I'm not just talking about renovation work, and I'm also not just talking about, spiritual life, prayer and meditation and reading. These are all things that are part of a religious life, but also being a genuine person as well, being a real person, not just living up to other people's expectations of us, or what I think a good spiritual life is all about, or how I should be living as a pastor, or wherever you're at in your life, but being the genuine person that you can be, whatever your role is in your life at this point. The parent, the husband, the wife, the child. And that also means having very real and honest conversations with the people in our lives, the people that matter to us. The people in your life, the closest people to you, your family members, your spouse, your kids, will be the ones who won't be afraid to tell you the honest truth. And I think that it's important that sometimes we don't want to hear it, but it's important that we keep an open mind, that we always keep that door open to let people speak to us, even if it's things that maybe we don't necessarily want to hear. Because we don't want to go through our whole life thinking that the ceiling is white when it really isn't. And we don't want to go through our whole life acting like somebody that we aren't until the last possible minute. So having these genuine and honest and real conversations, reading God's word with a genuine openness to learning and growing, praying and spending time in nature, and nurturing our most important relationships. These are all ways that we can add more light to our life. And I think that if we do that, then we will get closer to seeing the color for what it really is, and seeing our lives for what they really are. So that's my message today. Thank you so much, and please join me in prayer. Good morning, our dearest Heavenly Parent. We are so grateful that we can be here this morning. Thank you for another opportunity that we can reflect on our lives, that we can seek for how we can live better as sons and daughters, as good sons and daughters for you. Heavenly Parent, we know that in life we make mistakes, and we push through the best that we can, but we don't always see things the way they are. And we just pray and hope, Heavenly Parent, that you can please don't give up on us. Please continue to, lovingly show us the way, guide us in the right direction. Thank you so much, Heavenly Parent, for putting people into our lives who love us enough to be honest with us, to be genuine with us, to help us to become better people, Heavenly Parent. And we have this life, and at the end of the day, we don't take any of this with us. And we want to live the best life we can. And we want to be the best stewards of the things that you have given us that we can. And we want to live in a way where we can offer something meaningful to you, Heavenly Parent. And I believe on behalf of this whole community that we all feel that way. And please guide us. Please guide this group of wonderful people who so earnestly wish for that in our lives. Please guide our families. Please guide this community. And please continue to guide this world, Heavenly Parent. We thank you and offer this time to you. In my name, Michael Don Hendrick, blessed Central Family. Amen and adieu. Thank you.